Alan introduced Frank to his first wife. He set up the date that was their first date. And they had an interesting relationship. There are a lot of relationships in this case that reach almost Shakespearean level, you know. And Frank was something of a mentor to Alan. And they had this close relationship, but then they became competitors in the same industry. And that created some friction between them, but they had a long history together. The school bus industry was a competitive bid process. These were all government contracts. And they would all be up for bid periodically, and the competitors would put in sealed bids for these jobs. And Alan was very popular within that community, but Frank was known to be sort of a pretty tough bidder and, you know, somewhat predatory in the bidding process. And so they would knock heads. There were tempers displayed in New Jersey, and it was well known that the relationship between these two fellows had deteriorated, and that there were no doubt things said in anger by both men at different times. There were things that were said, and then they were, of course, subject to interpretation. You know, you can say, "My wife kills me," and that may just mean that she makes you laugh. You know, or you can say, "I want to get rid of somebody." That's not something that I would have expected Alan to say if that was his intent at the time. He was far too smart of a man to publicly announce an intention to harm someone. I think that it became subject to interpretation later, regardless of what happened. Lisa Costello, according to Lisa Costello and Alan, called Frank to attempt to make a straw man purchase of his business. In other words, create an entity that made it appear that someone other than Alan was actually purchasing the company, which happens all the time. I mean, it happened with Disney World in Florida when they bought up all the property. They didn't come in and say, "Look, we're Disney World, we want to buy all the property." They did it through a number of companies that disguised the true buyer. I think the idea was to create a negotiation in an atmosphere in which people were relaxed. I think the idea behind it, whosever idea was to get him in an atmosphere where he was much more relaxed and much more open to thinking outside the box. Lisa, who wanted to be an important figure in Alan's life, could take advantage of this situation and prove herself to be valuable to Alan in ways that maybe he didn't realize. And if she could have pulled off this business deal, it would have been a win-win-win deal, a win for Frank Black, a win for Alan Mackerly, a win for Lisa Costello. But unfortunately, it didn't happen that way. It's good to be brought up to be cooperative with law enforcement. That's certainly how we bring up our children. However, when you're a suspect or a person of interest, as they call suspects nowadays, it's not a bad idea to, think about your constitutional rights, because people don't even want to be investigated, much less charged or convicted. I mean, they want to have the law enforcement stay out of their life, and a lot of times people make stupid statements to law enforcement officers. It happens very, very often.
Keep your mouth shut.
Well, we do fight wars over these constitutional rights. It's not a bad idea to exercise them.